In the shadows of history, a chilling tale whispers through the ages, a tale of the undead, of the vampire, a creature of the night, feared and marveled at in equal measure, a figure that has for centuries haunted the human psyche, igniting a morbid fascination that transcends cultures and civilizations. Why, you may wonder, do these spectral figures, these bloodthirsty beings, these vampires, hold such a powerful sway over our collective imagination? What is it about the undead that sends shivers down our spines and yet draws us in, compelling us to probe the darkness, to seek answers, to understand the enigma? The vampire, an immortal entity, is a symbol of our primal fear of the unknown, of death and what lies beyond, a chilling embodiment of our dread of the unnatural, of the violation of life's most sacred law, mortality. But this is not just about fear. Our fascination with the vampire is also an exploration of our own darker side. It reflects our struggle with our mortality, our desire for power, for eternal life, and our fascination with the forbidden. Vampires, with their eternal youth and allure, their power and their freedom from the constraints of time, are a mirror held up to our deepest, darkest desires. But where did this fear, this fascination originate? How did the vampire, this creature of the night, come to be etched in our collective consciousness? The answers lie buried deep within our past, in myths and legends that have been whispered down the ages, in stories told around crackling fires in the dead of night, in ancient texts that speak of beings that defy death and feast on the lifeblood of the living. So dare to delve deep into the crypt of the past as we unearth the terrifying origin of the vampire. Prepare yourself, for this is a journey into the heart of darkness, a venture into the unknown. This is the enigma of the undead, a chilling tale that continues to haunt us even in the light of day. Our journey begins in the ancient world where the first seeds of the vampire legend took root. As far back as the dawn of civilization, humanity has been captivated by stories of the supernatural. And among these tales, some stand out more than others. Among the sand-swept pyramids of ancient Egypt, there were whispers of the undead. Legends spoke of blood-drinking beings who roamed under the cover of darkness, their existence a chilling testament to the human fascination with immortality and the macabre. These nocturnal creatures were not exclusive to the land of the pharaohs. They also found a place in the mythology of ancient Greece. There they were known as the vrikolakas, feared beings who, much like their Egyptian counterparts, fed on the life essence of the living, a trait that would become a hallmark of the vampire mythos. But what is it about these tales that has so captivated our collective imagination? Perhaps it is the allure of immortality, the irresistible idea of transcending the limitations of human life. Or maybe it's the blood drinking, a potent symbol of life and vitality, yet twisted into a horrifying act of predation. These ancient tales, steeped in fear and fascination, form the bedrock of the vampire legend. They reveal a common thread that weaves through cultures and centuries. A primal fear of the unknown, a fascination with the boundary between life and death, and the unsettling allure of the immortal. Yet it's not just the fear and fascination that have kept these legends alive. They serve as a mirror, reflecting our deepest fears and desires. They force us to confront the shadowy corners of our own nature, our capacity for cruelty, and our longing for immortality. These stories, born out of the ancient world, have traveled through time, enduring and evolving. They have been shaped by the fears and beliefs of each new generation, their details changing but their core remaining the same. A creature of the night, immortal, blood-drinking, and terrifying. As centuries passed, these ancient tales of blood and immortality twisted and evolved, feeding the growth of a darker legend. As we venture into the medieval era, the vampire takes a monstrous turn. These bloodthirsty creatures of the night no longer take the form of vengeful spirits or demonic entities. They are instead our neighbors, our friends, our family, risen from their graves to bring terror upon our villages and homes. During these dark times, the vampire myth undergoes a chilling transformation. It becomes a tale of the undead, those who have passed away but refuse to rest. These beings are said to emerge from their graves at night, prowling the village streets, spreading fear and disease. They are no longer ethereal spirits, but corporeal horrors, bearing the look of decay and death. The Middle Ages, a time plagued by death and disease, saw an unexpected connection between these vampires and the spread of the plague. As bodies piled up, people sought explanations for the inexplicable deaths. The vampire, a creature of the night and a symbol of death, was a convenient scapegoat. It was believed that these undead beings were spreading the plague, their deadly touch bringing illness and death. But how does one protect themselves from such a terrifying creature? Medieval methods were as horrifying as the monsters they sought to deter. Graves were disturbed, bodies exhumed. The dead were pinned to the earth with stakes, beheaded, or their hearts were removed, all to prevent them from rising again. It was a gruesome task, born out of fear and desperation. The vampire of this era was not the charming, seductive creature of modern tales. It was a monster, a being of death and decay, a symbol of the fear that gripped villages and towns. It was the embodiment of the unknown, of the unexplainable deaths and the spread of disease. The vampire of the Middle Ages was a horrifying creature, a far cry from the charismatic figures we know today. In the modern era, the vampire evolves yet again, becoming a complex figure of terror and fascination. The vampire we know today is a far cry from the monstrous creatures of old, morphing into a sophisticated, alluring figure that embodies the dark and unknown. This transformation, largely driven by literature and film, has shaped the vampire into a symbol of both fear and fascination. The 19th century saw the birth of the vampire in literature. The publication of John Polidori's The Vampire in 1819 introduced the concept of an aristocratic, seductive vampire. But it was Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1897 that truly solidified the vampire's place in Western culture, creating a creature that was as terrifying as it was captivating. As we entered the 20th century, film became the new medium for vampire lore. The silver screen brought the undead to life in new, visceral ways. From the haunting figure of Nosferatu to the charismatic Count Dracula, the vampire evolved, becoming a multifaceted character that audiences couldn't get enough of. Our fascination with vampires is not merely a result of thrilling stories or enticing characters. Deeper psychological reasons lie beneath our collective obsession. Vampires represent our innate fear of death, and yet they offer the tantalizing promise of immortality. They embody our darkest desires and forbidden fantasies, from eternal youth to invincibility, from power to seduction. Vampires also reflect societal anxieties. In the Victorian era, they were often depicted as sexual predators, embodying fears about female sexuality and the loss of innocence. In the 1980s and 90s, vampires became metaphors for the AIDS crisis, symbolizing the fear of a deadly, blood-borne disease. In the 21st century, the vampire continues to evolve, becoming a figure of romantic fascination in books like Twilight and shows like True Blood. As our fears and desires change, so too does the vampire, always reflecting the darker side of our collective consciousness. The vampire, once a symbol of fear and death, has transformed into a captivating icon of the dark and forbidden. From ancient myths to modern tales, the vampire remains an unending legacy of fear and fascination. This creature of the night, born in the cradle of our oldest civilizations, has morphed and evolved, survived and thrived, echoing through the corridors of time. From the bloodthirsty gods of ancient Mesopotamia to the seductive villains of Victorian literature, the vampire has worn many faces. It has embodied our deepest fears and our darkest desires, becoming a mirror of our collective psyche. We've watched it transform from a medieval monster to a modern myth, yet it has never lost its power to captivate us. And why is that? Perhaps it's because the vampire is more than just a tale of horror. It's a story of immortality, of power, of the eternal struggle between good and evil. It's a reflection of our own mortality, our own quest for understanding. As we retreat from the shadows of the past, the vampire lingers, a chilling reminder of our enduring fascination with the dark and unknown.